the next installment of Small Axe, Red, White, and Blue, following the story of Leroy Logan in the early 1980s. His, based off a true story, rise of him into the police force, very famous for recruiting black officers. And back in the 1980s and 90s, he started the National Black Police Association over in the United Kingdom. Um, just a really important figure in the police world then. And, kind of juxtaposing his experience with his father's. Leroy Logan is played by John Boyega of Star Wars recent trilogy fame, and Steve Toussaint plays his dad, and a couple other people in it. But um, this is our third installment,
Mhm.
and I thought this was a really effective one. We had Mangrove, which was a court procedural. We had kind of hang out, chill, just kind of get the vibe with
Vibes.
uh, man. I'm blanking on the name now.
Lovers Rock.
Lovers Rock. Thank you. Um, and now this one is more of a look at the blatant racism, which we got more of in Mangrove. Within the police department in Britain. How did you feel? Let's start with this. How did you feel about Boyega's performance in this?
Oh, I think he's tremendous. I think that goes without saying.
Yeah.
I think people have been excited for John Boyega with his newfound clout after becoming, internationally famous from Star Wars. People have been excited to see him have more to give than he ultimately was allowed to do as Finn in Star Wars. So I've been anticipating something like this, and again, making something with Steve McQueen. Uh, More likely than not, it's going to go well for you as an actor. Good idea. Um, and yeah, I think he's really good, especially once he starts to lose his faith in the system. He's trying to
Change.
reform from the inside, genuinely trying to rehabilitate uh, the way you're supposed to,
Hmm.
And Red, White, and Blue is interesting to me because it takes place a little over 10 years after Mangrove took place. It's, still in London. And again, it's smaller scale because this is about someone going into the race police force from the inside and genuinely trying to make it better. And I could not help but find this incredibly resonant today as something that people have talked about a lot in the US, obviously, this summer. So yeah, I thought Boyega was tremendous.
Yeah. I was really impressed, and it's kind of hard, right? What we've seen of John Boyega outside of Star Wars, where, like you said, he was poised to play a huge role, and then got kind of sidelined as the writing and conceptualizing the last couple episodes seemed to kind of fall apart or fall in on itself. But what we saw him in Detroit, which
Yeah.
was a fairly mixed reviewed movie,
Mhm.
and I
Catherine
think
Bigelow though, and similar subject matter to
right.
this. Definitely.
So he's done some dramatic acting, but I feel like this really got to put him in a really meaty role to display a lot of range, right? Because Leroy Logan, and taking on this undertaking to try to reform and improve by diversifying the uh, British police force, has to approach this with a calmness and a coolness similar to many other civil rights leaders of the past, where they had to, and the plight that many black people have had to face, where they feel like they've had to be 10 times better than their counterparts because of
Right.
their race. And that's proven throughout. I mean, even the parts where he's losing it, I just wanted him to beat the crap out of some
Yeah,
of those
for
people,
sure.
because they're so hateable and detestable in terms of how they treated him. And not only is it in being in this role, not only is it the racism he's facing, but the I don't know, stigma he's now given because of the job he has by people of his own race. So the
Right.
interracial stigma that he's facing as well is quite challenging, even within his own family. And you kind of see his loved ones turn it around, but it's pretty much everybody in his life in some way is turning his back on him. And I can only imagine how that must have been for the actual Leroy Logan. But I felt like Boyega portrayed that really well. That like spiral into despair and frustration.
right? And that's another thing too is, and I think credit goes to Steve McQueen and how this movie is constructed, because this doesn't give you wide swath of Leroy Rogan's career and the, some success that he did have in this pursuit of his.
Mhm.
It just kind of stops after his conversation with his dad, where they both kind of come to grips with what he's doing and acknowledge that it's a just cause, but who knows if it's going to lead to anything, right? Like they don't have like the happiest of chats to end the film, right?
No.
And like it kind of reminds me of how Mangrove ends, because Mangrove ends, in triumph. The Mangrove Nine exonerated, right? And then it leaves you with the text. Oh yeah, well, the leader of the head of the restaurant was harassed for 30 more years. Then he closed the
Mhm.
restaurant like in the 90s. It's like, oh shit, like.
Yep.
And then this one again, it kind of stops you short. Like it doesn't get as glib as something like Trial of Chicago 7 we talked about with Mangrove, because it's smaller focus, smaller scale, red, white, and blue. So, Boyega, I just think about, he went viral for a really impassioned speech at the protests in the summer.
For Black
But-
Lives Matter.
Yeah, and he's been very vocal about not giving a shit about how the film industry traditionally is operated, and he does not care about playing nice and playing the game. So I'm looking forward to just seeing what else he continues to do, because something like this feels very much in his wheelhouse about what John Boyega seems to care about these days. So,
Totally.
and
Totally. And
for Steve McQueen, this very much thematically continues to make sense for what we've come to expect from Small Axe so far.
yeah, as we talk about small acts every week, it feels a bit redundant to just praise McQueen over and over.
Yeah.
But there's so many awesome shots in this. Whether it's Boyega when he's kind of chasing that guy through the warehouse, and the tracking shot as it's kind of like weaving in and out through there, or another great shot from a car when the dad goes to drop him off for his first day of training, and he gets out, doesn't say anything, and then he gets out and gives him a hug, and you kind of watch them have this moment, this father son moment through the front windshield of the car, similar to, it reminded me a lot of Widows actually. And when you have oh man, I'm forgetting his name, but driving the car from it's Colin Farrell, right? In that, and I'm forgetting who,
Wait, sorry, what are you talking about?
in Widows,
Oh
the
yeah,
the
Colin Farrell,
car
the
tracking
politician.
shot scene.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
um
excellent scene.
yeah, another great scene. So uh give Steve McQueen more shots in cars. But just overall, really visually pleasing to watch. Great performances, and Mangrove continues to be, I feel like, much must watch TV every week. Like I'm excited every time there's a new story being told. So if you're not watching yet and you've listened to our three reviews, please do so. Any more thoughts on Red, White, and Blue, Dave?
This was the last one that was at New York Film Festival, a few months ago. So the last two we're getting, Alex Weedle and Education, were previously unseen by American critics, but very excited to see this continue. I think, as far as I know, there's no like super famous actors left in the run. Obviously, we've had a big amount of those so far with Letitia Wright and uh, Boyega to this point, but I mean, Steve McQueen. What else can you say?